recording this.
Excellent.
Apologies.
That's okay. So One School Global as an organisation, we're very conservative and take student safety extremely seriously, probably more so than in the state sector. And as we go through today, you'll probably get a bit of a feel for just how strongly we take student safety and access rights and things. The other important thing to note is we are an independent school, so we're not a state or state integrated. So all the licenses to make this happen, we've had to dip into our own pockets and pay for. So we really are walking the walk in that regard and putting our money where our mouth is. So when I started about this time in 2017, we had lots of these little boxes buzzing around across all the sites. Every site had a couple of physical servers with a bunch of virtual servers on top. We also operated a data centre out of the Telecom building in Airedale Street with all our sites connecting into it. And we also had a brand new 30 physical servers waiting for deployment. So all the servers we had on site were 4 years old. Before I started, they purchased 18 months before a whole lot of new ones, and they were just sitting there waiting, gathering dust, literally. We had about 1,700 Windows 8.1 devices. So we provide a device for every student in years 7 through to 13. And back in 2017, the years 3 to 6 had a device at a 1:4 ratio. We were using 50 meg and 100 meg internet connections via the Spark WAN, and that went up to the data centre, and then all the internet went out of there. Every campus had its own Active Directory structure. So as you can imagine, if we wanted to make a change in Active Directory, we had to replicate that 19 times.
Must have been fun.
Fun's not the word. Because of that, we did find a lot of subtle differences between all the sites. So a student in Kaipara would have slightly different access rights based on group policy from someone in Invercargill or One Series. We did have our toes into Office 365. We were using it for email only at that point though. There's no replication, there's no sync between on-prem AD because we had so many different ones, plus the single tenant. So whenever a new staff or student started, we'd create them on their local domain and then also replicate that information up in the cloud. And we also had a lot of old Cisco VC equipment floating around. Most of our classes are taught over video conference, starting back in the day with Cisco.
So I guess from my perspective, you've got quite a familiar environment that a lot of people on this call would go hardware-wise, network-wise, that resonates with us. But the distributed nature of your campuses and the relatively small number of students in each one mean the VC component and distance learning is kind of a unique feature that many schools won't have on hand.
Yeah, correct. So particularly for some of our really small sites, so I'm thinking Dunedin and Invercargill, we might have 20 students, or on the West Coast with Westport and Greymouth, we've got about 12 students each. They actually travel up and down a couple of times a week. So the Invercargill senior students will go to Dunedin on a Thursday, on a Friday, the Dunedin seniors will go to Invercargill and things like that. That was really tricky for them. All their files were on an on-prem file share. A lot of the time it wasn't syncing across the local device. They struggled to print, of course, because they weren't authenticating that local domain. We were getting 200 plus support tickets a week. A lot of those issues, people moving, unable to access the data or content.
So identity, right?
Correct, absolutely. There was IT support and IT help desk, and there was all this very reactive, negative perception of what IT is and what it can do. It's very much one of those old legacy support models. We're spending close to $750,000 a year just on OPEX for supporting the legacy WAN, server support, backups of all those servers, and unsurprisingly, lots of frustration. When I started, I'd have a weekly Zoom video conference with the members of our national leadership team, which in the state sector would equate to the board. And that would go for an hour or so every Monday.
Just on IT?
Just on IT issues that were raised to that senior level.
Wow.
We were getting 20 or 30 of those every week. And naturally, parents were getting frustrated because their kids weren't learning. Students were getting frustrated because they couldn't learn, the teachers couldn't teach. We had lots of this. So we sat down and thought, what can we do? And we came up with a bit of a light bulb moment. And as it happens, it was almost 2 years ago. And we're going, we can keep doing what we're doing here. We've got all these brand new servers to roll out. We can replace all those. We can move to a single AD structure and keep doing what we're doing, keep the lights on.
So it's quite an important date, because you're saying in less than 2 years, or just over 2 years, you've gone from this situation you're describing now to where you are today.
Correct.
Okay.
One of the things I do enjoy about One School Global is once we make up our minds about something, we just get it done.
Yeah. Nice.
GSD.
Yeah.
And cloud's something that's been floating around for a while. We're already using Office 365, Canvas for our LMS, Zoom, Xero. So we're throwing around, what can we do differently? And in previous roles, I've done some migrations to the cloud, and I said, hey guys, there's this cloud thing. You may have heard of it.
Yeah.
We're already touching on cloud already. It's not a foreign thing to the school. I think we need to park what we've been doing, spending all this money, and just jump into it. Here's all the benefits for it. It's the way of the future. It will work. I can't prove to you it will work because there's no case studies at that point in time. Yeah. But it will work. Yeah. Trust me. So we threw that idea around, and we came up with this whole concept of Westmount 2.0. Where we had all this old technology, typewriter type stuff, through to fully cloud, seamless, everything just works. And in fact, I was flying back on a lovely Air New Zealand flight and joined the Korowau service, and I came up with a bit of a mission statement, if you like, for the project. Yeah. A future where students can learn anytime, anywhere, on any device. Taking away all the pain, all the complexity, and that's kind of stuck throughout everything we've done.
Great.
On the back of that.
So that resonated with the leadership team.
Oh yeah. They said, your sole purpose is to make sure teachers can teach, students can learn. Good. We don't care about other stuff. We don't care how you do it. Just make it happen.
And look, I think this is important. Microsoft's a technology company. You're working in schools. I'm working in education. But really, all of our focus should be around driving better learning outcomes, letting teachers save time, get on all that stuff. Yep. The perfect solution is where IT just fades into the background, right?
Correct.
It's there, it's omnipresent, but it's not the focal point.
Correct.
And that's what you've tried to achieve here.
Absolutely. Instead of IT being the front of everything, we just wanted to disappear quietly in the background, almost make ourselves redundant, if you like, and just be there in a supporting manner to drive things forward. So within the New Zealand environment, everybody was very excited. They're going, yep, let's explore this. What can we do? Cool. Being part of a global school, I report professionally to the global CIO, who's based in Sydney. Yep. And he has a team globally of architects and things. And straight away they went, no.
Surprise, surprise.
I want to do this. No. Why not? Just no. It won't work. There's all sorts of things you need to consider about securing devices with group policy. You need to physically be able to see things to know it's working. This cloud thing, it's not mature enough. Mm-hmm. It won't work. It's not reliable. What will happen if?
Yeah. Which are still objections that I hear today out there. And I guess this is part of why I wanted you to tell your story, because in less than 2 years, you've confronted those objections, had a strategy, implemented with a proof of concept, and deployed widely.
Yep. We had numerous calls. Our global MD was right on board with what we're doing. Fortunately. Yeah. So he sort of started saying, no, we're going to do this. So we had a lot of calls with the global technology team. I said, tell me all your objections, tell me all your issues, and we'll tick them off one by one.
Yeah. And for those that have joined the call a bit later, right at the outset, Aaron just did mention that he's looking after all of the New Zealand campuses in Argentina, but One School Global is truly a global school with campuses all around the country.
The
globe. There we go.
Yep. Not helping the process as well as the architects in Sydney. I think we're getting a little bit confused, and no disrespect to Microsoft, but I think they've done themselves a little bit of the service. There's a lot of confusion around Azure AD and Azure ADDS. Yeah. They kept saying, well, with your server standing up, are you really cloud? And going, no, we're not doing a server in Azure, we're doing Azure AD. Yeah, that's what we said. I said, no, they're two completely separate things. Yeah. So I actually gave them similar information to this, where You know, with Azure ADDS, sure, you've got your virtual servers, they're sitting in the cloud, sitting somewhere else. We don't want that. We don't want to have to maintain physical anything or virtual anything.
Yeah.
I want to go to a full outsource model.
Yeah.
And that's where the Azure AD work kicks in.
Yeah.
Um,
And look, that's a conversation. If we want to go deep on that and subsequently reach out to me, we can kind of help you in that space. But this is one of the biggest challenges for a lot of schools is getting their head around cloud identity and how to manage that. So thanks for calling us for now, Aaron.
No problem. So I finally got to the point where we could do a proof of concept. They said, okay, you're not going to give up on this, are you? I said, no, I truly believe this is what we need to do. So I said, okay, you can do a proof of concept on a small scale. And I said, great. I have a trial site that I'm going to use. The IT lead on the NLT that I report to happens to be based in the South Island, in Dunedin, and he said, pick on Dunedin. Right. Do you want a small site? Right. We'll use this one. 6 teachers, 18 students in a Zoom room. We had some conversation with them, and they're quite a young team down there. They're going, great, if this is going to take away this frustration of when students are moving up and down, or when teachers move up and down, we're all for it. Tell us what you want to do. Yeah. So we did a trial, and literally, 9 months after we came up with this concept, we went live with the cloud in Dunedin. Okay. At a very small scale. We did have a number of things that we had to work through. So one of, we had to work out what was on-prem. So we had DNS, we had DHCP, and that was the first thing that the global team said was, what about these things? You need a server. I'm going, no, you don't. We'll move it all onto the router. Cool. So at that point in time, we had microtik routers everywhere. We moved those servers to that. Tick, done. Yeah. What about the client operating system? You're running Windows 8. And I said, what about it? We'll just re-image. Yeah. So we re-imaged all their devices with Windows 10 1803. And
so you had like a small trial to start with?
Correct. Being a small site, we had 20 devices. I flew down to Dunedin and grabbed all the devices one night. Yeah. I sat there in my hotel room with USB keys, re-imaged them all. Yeah. Job done. Yeah. And then the big ones that they kept coming up was group policy. It was always about the group policy. How are you going to manage these devices, and how are you going to secure them to the level that we want and demand? Yeah. So we'll touch on that shortly. Printing was the other one. I personally hate printing. I don't know why we still need to print in the digital age, but we do. So it's saying, how are you going to manage printing? Are you going to connect to every device and manually map and go, no, got a plan for that, don't worry. And finally, the identity management bit, and this was the key bit. In my mind, that was the only thing and the only real reason we still had on-prem service was for that identity management from the local Active Directory. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, but we've already got identity management already because we're using email. There's a login and a password. That's fundamentally Azure AD at work. Yeah. And that, again, took a bit of working through in the
education.
Yeah. So we got the proof of concept underway. Groundwork was key. So they were saying, you need to have a plan for this. And I said, I agree. One of the first things I want to do is make my life easy. Yeah, good. There's an old saying, if you want a job done quickly and efficiently, give it to the laziest person in the room, they'll find all the shortcuts. I'm generally that guy. Yeah. So I knew a bit about dynamic groups, and I thought, right, we're going to use these because it's going to make my life easier going forward. So it's one of the foundations that we had to create first. So we got dynamic user groups and dynamic device groups. Yep. So by using those, we could start targeting a lot of software deployment, policy deployment to a reasonably granular level, probably more so than what we could do with on-prem group policy.
And this is really laying the foundation for everything to come.
Correct. Got this right, everything just snapped into place. So it reduces all the manual steps. We don't have to manually put people into groups based on if they're a staff or a student. Yeah. It drives all the licensing. Perfect. So we assign licenses to the groups that says you can have this license and this license, this software and this software. Yeah. Also for the app deployment. Mm-hmm. So everybody got the apps they needed when they needed them. Yeah. And this is just a quick screenshot how we set it up. So on the Azure AD record, we use the job title to say what their role is, what year group, and for us what campus. And then we replicate that for staff. So that automatically put people into the right group. So we could have staff in a Waikato group, students in a Waikato or a junior. And this is kind of Again, something I mapped up on an Air New Zealand flight. Those Canadian flights are great. You get plenty of time to sit with a napkin.
Yeah, sure.
So we basically create a dynamic primary student group. So if it's a student in Timaru and it's in years 3, 4, 5 or 6, put them in that primary group. If they're in 7, 8, 9, 10, put them in the junior students, and 11, 12, 13, put them in that group. That rolls up to Timaru students, which in turn rolls up to. So I can target any of those points for any policy or app deployment. For the devices, we have largely gone for manual enrollment, only because we had such a big fleet. I mean, we had 1,700 odd devices on-prem that we re-imaged and moved across. There are some tools around, some scripts you can run to almost fake an autopilot. We didn't go with that. We just went with manual enrollment because we were doing a trial and then we started moving it out from there. But autopilot is something we're now starting to use. It does simplify things immensely. One of the things we found with our students, some as the 80-20-year-old, 20% are always trying to find ways around the system. So a few of them have worked out how to refresh Windows on the machine.
Right.
Because we're saying as soon as you join as your AD, automatically apply an autopilot profile to it. So they can restart their device, restart Windows, reload Windows, and it goes, oh, I know who you are. Here, you can only access OneSchool Global stuff. You can't go anywhere else.
Yeah. So it renders the device useless to non-school purposes, right?
Correct.
You know that who should have the device assigned to it with autopilot, and as soon as it connects to the internet, it's going to push out those same settings and policies based off your dynamic group membership.
Absolutely.
Easy.
Yep. So that started ticking some big boxes for the global team around security.
Yeah, totally.
What will happen if they re-image the device and get stuff they shouldn't?
Yeah. Which, again, in your environment, you've got a conservative and highly managed requirement from your leadership team, and so something like that's critical.
It is. And we've had a few students get very frustrated with IT, in fact, and say, why can't I do this? And because we don't want you to. Yeah. Not need to. Yeah. So we do have a number of autopilot profiles set up, and they're all nicely assigned up. For those that haven't seen it, you've got quite a bit of detail you can drill into. So the staff, we have local admin rights. Right. Students join as a standard user. So
which I think is an important call out here, because one of the objections I hear, Aaron, is you have reduced sets of functionality or control when you're using Azure Active Directory, using Intune, all of that sort of stuff. And even though you're running through some of these screenshots directly from Intune pretty quickly, the call out here really is you've got as much, if not greater, control around these devices, and you're not taking a backward step.
Absolutely not.
By going in this direction.
No. If anything, we're hardening the environment, but also making it simpler to manage.
Great.
So the big question, what about group policy? So conveniently, Microsoft have a wonderful tool called MDM Migration Analysis Tool. So I downloaded that from GitHub. It's a lovely free tool, and it compares the group policies at a user and device level against what's out of the box with Intune. Yeah. It's like I say, it's a free download from GitHub. I downloaded that. I visited a couple of different campuses so I could get a bit of a feel, ran it against some devices, and it just spits out a real simple, easy to see download file. So anything in green, it says, yep, this group policy, tick, we did this out of the box, no worries. Some of these other ones, not currently supported out of the box, but you can use other techniques to get them. And some of them, I even found we didn't need anymore. So if I'm just looking up here, some things around max clock skew and things like that, which is important when you're talking to an on-prem AD controller. You need to make sure your clocks are in sync. We don't need it in Intune. All that stuff, a lot of that stuff disappeared because we didn't need it.
And I think as well, this is one of the things that for many schools they're thinking around is, what is the group policy that we have in place, and is it still relevant in a cloud-first world? And some of the things that actually slow down the startup of Windows is these group policies, looking across your network, trying to mount network shares, all of that sort of stuff. But if you've migrated that to SharePoint or online or Microsoft Teams, OneDrive, then this group policy you can actually just get rid of and save yourself a lot of time.
Oh, and for us having 16, 17 different Active Directories, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah. So if you're listening in here, have a quick search for MMAT. It will allow you to compare your existing group policy with existing Intune CSPs. It's a key tool.
Yep, absolutely. And this is one of the other key pillars that I had. So my dynamic groups, MMAT, that's the foundation.
Brilliant.
Okay. So I think that I like to call not group policy.
Yeah.
It's a dirty word to me. So in the cloud environment, we've got Intune policies, we've got OMA URI, and we've got ADMX ingestion.
Cool.
So these are the three key things that, if you want to think of it, they replicate group policy.
Yeah.
I don't like to think they replicate it. I think it's a whole separate thing that does it better.
But ultimately, it's your control over your devices.
Correct. Yep. There's multiple ways of achieving similar, if not better, results. Cool. So Intune policies, we've got compliance policies and we have configuration policies. We use both of these within one school. So as the name suggests, you can lock down some compliance on the device, or you can change the configuration. So these are some of the compliance policies we have in play.
I'm just going to call out there as well that there's multiple operating systems here, right?
Absolutely.
So you're talking Intune as your MDM, but you're managing Android devices, iOS devices, macOS devices there, and of course Windows.
Yeah.
Windows 10.
Yeah. So we've created policies for all of those device types.
So now you've got a single pane of glass to look across all of your devices.
Exactly.
No matter what.
It doesn't matter what it is, or more importantly, where it is.
Cool. Yeah, that's true.
Yep. So for our Android for Work policy, I can block rooted devices.
Nice.
That introduces security concerns for me. You're not allowed on. There's other things we can tick or not tick, and this is an important thing. It's all very GUI, very visual, easy for a non-technical person to do as well. We can specify, what version is running. Do we need passwords? So for some of our senior staff, our finance guys, we have a policy that says your phone must have certain complexity. It must be BitLocker, encrypted. Versus the teacher where you just need a simple password.
And this comes back to your dynamic groups, right?
Correct.
If you sit in the dynamic group, you inherit the correct policies.
Correct. Yep. And if you change roles, you get new policies in place.
Nice.
And same applies for Windows 10 as well. So I'll just skip through
these. I know Aaron's running through these. We'll share the slide deck afterwards.
Yep,
you'll have access to this if you want to see it. These are all just screenshots out of the web GUI.
And this is out of my live environment. That's not stuff I've downloaded from a best case. There's just so many settings out of the box sitting in there just for compliance, let alone anything else. So we can really nail down what's allowed to connect to our environment. For configuration, it's very similar. We've got profiles we can have PowerShell scripts. Those two, like group policy, it's just so much better. Right. So device configuration policies, if I just look at Windows 10 or later, there's 20 out of the box, ready to go. And as of today.
These are categories on the left, and under each category, you've got sometimes 30, 40, 50 settings under each one. So it's not just 20 things you can do, it's 20 categories of control around configuration.
Correct. And I know when I started, a number of these went down.
Yeah.
When I did the slide deck a couple of days ago, there's now 20.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the key thing, it's a constantly evolving product. I did see a good slide deck from Inspire, I think it was, with the releases of Intune updates and SCCM updates and other products. And literally every week there's 20 updates to Intune. Yeah. So as well as the 20 out of the box, there's also a really cool custom one, which lets you do things that may not already be out of the box.
Sure.
And this is half of our configuration profile. So we use device restriction ones, we've got custom ones, device features, we've got things around addition upgrades and things like that. So one of the common ones I use is Wi-Fi. So this pushes out our Wi-Fi connect, so students and staff don't get our Wi-Fi password.
Perfect.
So therefore they can't connect a device that we don't know about to our network. Shared multi-user, this is a new one we put in. We've just deployed close to 300 Surface Go's nationwide. We use the shared multi-user device profile, targeted the devices, it's on there. It just makes things simpler for teachers. So for the device configuration policies, one of the key things is it can apply to the device regardless where it is. So we have some students that will go overseas for a term.
Right.
I can still target their device regardless of where they are in the globe, as long as they've got internet. And clearly they don't need to be on domain like group policy does at the moment.
Which is the big shift, right? And I think this is not just Microsoft moving in this direction. Every device manufacturer is pushing in this direction. They want to go cloud, they want to be end-to-end because it removes that need to be physically in a location to get updates.
Yep. And I know some of my colleagues overseas where they still have the group policy, they'll make a change to group policy, but until the student device, teacher device comes back on, they're not going to get it. You can literally change these settings on the fly. So I flew to ISTE in Philadelphia the other month. I connected to Engine's free Wi-Fi and I created some configuration policies and pushed them out to devices from 35,000 feet. Beautiful. Seamless, just worked. This is probably a key one, that it's not an instant update though. So the device will check in when it logs on, and then it will check every 8 hours for any changes. So it's not an instant thing. You can force it, just like you can force group policy, but it's not instant.
And I wrote a good blog post about this recently because it is something that a lot of people ask, and it's pretty clear in the documentation. But if you're enrolling a new device into Intune, then of course it will check immediately once it gets enrolled. It'll check every 15 minutes for the first hour. So you're getting any updates that are changing in there, it's really looking for those, and then it will settle into the sort of standard approximately 8-hour update.
Business as usual type thing. Well, which for us is fine. I know a lot of our students go home and do schoolwork in the evenings with their devices, so it'll be within 1 day they'll get any changes we do, if not sooner. So one of the key tools that we've got, as well as the out-of-the-box policies, is this lovely thing called Omauri, and I have no idea if that's how you're supposed to pronounce it.
Let's go with that.
It's a lot easier than say an Open Mobile Alliance Uniform Resource Identifier. So this is something that's come out of the mobile space. It uses these things called configuration service providers, which really extend the ability of Intune to manage devices down to a very granular level. It's similar to the group policy client-side extensions, which I think a lot of people are familiar with. There's currently 57 of these CSPs for Windows 10. Microsoft had a really good website that breaks them all down. Some apply to some versions and not to others. So we can see, BitLocker CSP doesn't apply to the Home Edition, but all the other editions.
And look, there's lots you can do in this space. The one example that I got shared with by a partner, I think it's on the call, thank you very much, it was around fast first sign-in. So if you're having shared devices and you want to really accelerate that user experience to kind of sub 5 seconds logging into Windows 10 for the first time, you can configure the CSP around fast first sign-in, which will automatically locate or assign that Azure AD user to a pre-configured local profile and get you in pretty much instant access. So that level of granularity is available through the CSP method.
And it's great. I mean, if you have a look, it's all laid out exactly what you can do.
Standard.
You almost copy paste into Intune. And that's what we've done. So we blocked the public Microsoft Store because one of the students downloading things. We created a quick custom Omauri, put in the values, job done.
Cool.
And that's very similar to group policy as well, of course. The big one for us was the ADMX ingestion. So it works in a similar way to on-prem AD, where you download the ADMX file from the vendor, Google for instance for Chrome, and import it in, and then you can use it. It is literally that easy, import then use.
So I had a customer here in Auckland who was a G Suite for Education user. They were using Hapara as well. They were absolutely committed to the Windows 10 platform. However, they value the platform for their devices to be Windows 10, but they said, Sam, we really need to be able to have the Chrome web browser fully configured. We need Hapara extension already on there. How do we go about doing it? And so we helped them through ADMX ingestion, and that solved all their problems for them.
And again, this was one of the things that Global came back. Everybody loves Chrome and going, why? He's just so much better. But I'm winning that battle slowly.
I didn't pay him to say that.
But all students and staff, for whatever reason, prefer Chrome. So I had to find a way of supporting, replicating it and doing it. So I downloaded the ADMX, I imported it, and then we can start doing some cool things with it. Cool. So it really is as simple as opening up the ADMX file in Notepad, Notepad++, copy paste the XML, you tell it what the Omauri is going to be. In this case, a whole lot of pre-configured stuff, ADMX install, Chrome policy, Chrome ADMX. Cool. And then we can call that for anything else we do. So a lot of students found if they went in airplane mode, they could sit there all day and play that dinosaur game in Chrome. I said, not doing that anymore, kids. Have a block. So ingested the ADMX and then called a specific policy from within the ADMX, just as you would in the traditional group policy. Set it to disabled, job done. Cool. And we can also block extension installs, or we can force out certain extensions only.
Again, guys, if you're listening and you've got any questions you want to throw in, feel free to add them to the chat window. I'm kind of monitoring that as Aaron goes through this. We will have question and answer at the end, but if you've got questions midstream, just throw them in the chat window.
Yep, great. So the other option that I did mention earlier was PowerShell. So when I started this journey back in 2017, we had probably 10 PowerShell scripts that we were using to push things out.
Right.
To push out some software that we could only get as an executable file on MSI or from the store. We're down to about 2 now.
Okay.
And again, I think that's a reflection of how mature the product is becoming in a very short amount of time. Microsoft have gone, hey, people want to use these, we'll just make it native.
Yeah.
We'll take away some extra pain. But you can use PowerShell to push out any settings.
Yeah.
And it's just a PowerShell script, you drop it on the machine and it executes.
Yeah. So questions just come through from Paul around have you considered BYOD devices? And I know your environment is very different, so I'll let you speak to what that would be around that.
Yeah, so we don't have any BYOD. The school funds every faculty device, every student device.
Yeah.
It's not something we want to entertain, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. And that's because of the culture of the school, right?
That's because of the culture of the school. We have a bespoke bit of security software, Streamline, that goes on every device that does web filtering and device control. BYOD devices don't have that. Yeah. We do allow teachers to bring their personal device in, but can't leave the staff room. And again, it's a evolving topic.
Yeah.
Students love or staff love their mobile device.
Yeah.
To take a role in things. So we're tweaking things. We are looking to enroll staff mobile devices into Intune, just so we can control it.
Yeah.
Wrap up all the apps, and then when they leave, we just erase it.
Yeah. And I think the answer to the question is, can Intune and the environment that Aaron is talking about here manage BYOD devices? From my perspective, technically, absolutely.
Yep.
And the best example of that, I guess, is, my personal iPhone is enrolled with Intune for device management, which is really just around compliance and saying, if you're going to have corporate email on here, you must have a PIN number of a certain complexity. If you leave, we can remote wipe, all that sort of stuff. So Intune is absolutely capable of doing that and separating BYO from corporate-owned devices or organisation-owned devices. Just in your environment, it wasn't really an applicable thing.
It's not a thing for us. But yes, you're right, it can do it. I did do some research just for self-interest, and it can definitely do it. So the other big thing that came up was printing.
Of course.
I hate printing. It always looks like this next to the machine. But we wanted something that was cloud-based. We wanted something that was easy to deploy, easy to use for both IT staff and students. Yeah. It had to be cost-effective. And I wanted to be able to see what was going on at every site.
You need to be roaming across campuses, right? Your students and staff are doing that.
Absolutely. So with the current setup, some use paper cuts, some use a couple of other products for cost recovery. We had no insight into any of that. We didn't know what was happening other than they'll send me a bill every month for copy costs. Right. I'm going, this is crazy. So we found a lovely product called Printix, cool. Out of Denmark. I jumped onto Microsoft App Source. It's a great resource. I've been on there a few times looking for different things. For those that haven't visited, I suggest you do. There's all sorts of great partners on there with solutions. Printix happened to be the one we really liked. We use Intune again to push out the client. It automatically signs in because the device is already part of Azure AD. It knows exactly who you are. It just signs in instant. Yep. And it assigns the printers based on who you are and where you are. Nice. So if I'm a staff member in Dunedin, I'll get the Dunedin staff printer. If that same staff member goes to Invercargill, it drops the Dunedin printer and says, oh, you're still staff, but now you're here. Have the Invercargill staff printer. Brilliant. And the same for students. Cool. It just works. You can have multiple queues set up with it. Cloud dashboard, so we can see every printer in our fleet. We can see if it's online, offline, if it needs service. We can assign or remove, again, dynamic groups from all of these. So somebody changes campus, they go into a new dynamic group automatically. Automatically, they get new printers. Yeah. It just works. They've got a really cool Power BI interface. Yeah. So I've been using that quite a bit.
So for the reporting side of things?
For the reporting side of things, we publish it up so any of the campus principals can see it as well and drill into their campus. Yeah. But at a high level, I can see how many users, workstations, number of printers. I can see all the print jobs that were done for a certain time period at a certain place or printer.
69-page document being printed. Good Lord. I hope it was double-sided.
No, it wasn't. So you can see it was duplex, false.
Yes.
If I wanted to do cost recovery, I can then export this out, throw another column into Excel and multiply it out. It's not something that we do within one school, because our parent fees cover all this.
Sure, but it could be done.
It could be done.
Yeah, and you can see along the bottom the different tabs. So this is actually a Power BI report, right? So
it is.
straight in.
And this goes off and pulls update every 6 hours or whenever I click refresh.
Nice. I guess just for those listening, it's worth calling out that up until this point, everything that Aaron has been doing has effectively been under the M365 suite of tools. Printix is the first time he's using a third-party solution to complement what's happened inside of 365. But without going deep on it, the licensing model is very similar to the Microsoft stuff around student use benefit, right?
Correct, yeah. So we only pay for faculty.
Right.
Students print free, just like the M365 licenses.
Yeah.
So of course that's really appealing for us.
Yeah, totally.
So application deployment. So this is the other big thing where Global is saying, oh, but what about this? You need to build an image.
Yeah.
You need to have an image, and it needs to be LTSB so nobody can change it or fiddle with it.
Yeah.
Those naughty people at Microsoft push updates out. I'm going, yeah, I want those updates. I'm crying out for those updates. Forget about images. This is how we're going to do it. So with application deployment, there's a couple of ways. We've got your standard MSI, line of business, push out. A new one, which I was really excited about, was the Win32 app deployment, which got around all those PowerShell scripts I had with executable files, or of course the Microsoft Store. So one of the things we did at the beginning of the year, we documented into Excel all the applications that are in use, and then across the top, all the dynamic groups. And I sent it to our curriculum lead and said, tell me who needs what. So they went through and said, everybody needs OneDrive for Business. For everybody needs antivirus, everybody needs Printix. SketchUp 2017 is only used by a certain subset. MakerBot is on most things, but not some of the senior staff and students. So with that, we could then use our dynamic groups to assign that deployment. So a student signs on, they get whatever applications they need to get. At the end of the year, when we roll them over, they turn on the device in the new year. Some things will disappear, some new things will appear. I don't have to touch the device. So the new Win32 thing was key for me. So it lets us convert an executable file into something that Intune can use. It's very similar to the way SCCM works, as far as running a process to convert it to a file that Intune can use, and it literally takes 3,000 milliseconds to convert a small file from executable saying Intune can use. We come into the dashboard and the client apps, choose our app type, so we can see there's different apps we can push up, and again by dynamic group, choose our Windows app, and then basically fill in the blanks. So tell it what the product is, how to install it, how to uninstall it, how to detect if something's already there. If it's already there, it'll skip. If it's not, it pushes it out. Which gets around students also uninstalling things somehow, and then going, oh, I can't do my schoolwork today, miss, because I don't have the program. They uninstall it, this goes, oh, hang on, you're supposed to have this.
Push back. And I think this is again evolution of the product, right? How far it's actually come in this space. And the one call out I would say is, originally pushing out some of these MSI line of business apps, Win32 now, the installer file size was around 2 gig, and now it's up to 8 gig in size. So you can really start to load really large files that you want to push out remotely. And again, we've got partners now that are pushing out things like FileMaker Pro for Kmart, all right, and doing remote deployment, doing remote deployment of the SMS via Intune. Other things like the Adobe Creative Suite, the different components of that. Now, it's completely up to you whether you want to use Intune in the cloud to push these things out. The point is, you can if you so chose.
Absolutely.
And there's other methods that you can use with modern management, with provisioning packages and things like that as well, if you wanted to do those physically on the device. But the point is the solution that you're showing here and have working across, thousands of students now and hundreds of staff is fully cloud.
Fully cloud. We don't have to look at any device. We sit in Auckland, we push things out. It's great. Or, as I said before, 30,000 feet.
Nice.
So shared files. Actually, with file servers on-prem, we expect to be lots of shared files. There actually wasn't. There wasn't that many. Staff and students all had their little U drive that got mapped through group policy,
really
and
cool.
sometimes worked, sometimes didn't. We put out Microsoft Teams. So we said every campus have a Teams site. You can come in here, all the admin staff are in there. You can put any generic content, so health and safety type information or anything that multiple people need, we'll put on a Teams site. Everybody can then access it. It's the single point of truth. The upside of that, of course, is they went, oh, can we chat to people on this? So suddenly Teams just started morphing everywhere.
Nice.
And yeah, extra collaboration.
And for their personal files, they could continue to use OneDrive.
Correct. So we did have a couple of students using OneDrive, inadvertently. So when we turned off our servers, we moved everybody to OneDrive for Business. So everybody has a personal OneDrive from year 7 up, plus students, plus staff. So everything goes in there.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that, again, to kind of prove where Intune is evolving to now is support for things like no-folder move, right? So if you've got students that are inadvertently or deliberately saving content to their desktop, to their pictures, their documents folder, you can have Intune policy that will automatically migrate that to OneDrive. So you're ensuring the backup is actually there. If the device gets stolen, fatally damaged, you've got that content.
And that's a really good point. We used to use a PowerShell script to do that. We turned that one off and it became native.
Nice.
The other good thing about having OneDrive for the students, we have had calls occasionally to investigate a student's report that they've said, oh no, we submitted this, I don't know what happened to it. And we've been able to go back in the version and see when they did changes, and the teacher's been able to say, oh actually, yep, that's fine, or no, you've done changes since submission date, sorry. Cool. One of the other added bonuses for us was Microsoft Secure Store. So we've been using this quite a bit. Just to give us a bit of a feel for how secure our environment is. And again, going back to what I said at the start, being quite conservative, being able to know that our environment is safe and secure, and we're doing what we should be doing to keep that content safe and the staff and students safe is key. I was checking this once a week and making minor tweaks based on recommendations. We got pretty stable at one point. We got up to 350 points. Unfortunately, like everything in Intune, it develops, new things come out. Something's changed recently, and we've taken a hit of 110 points.
So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit here and explain what Secure Score is, because if you're unfamiliar with this, I strongly encourage you to do a bit of checking into this if you're using anything in the Office 365 or EMS suites here. So essentially, Secure Score looks at your environment and your licensing, and it says what are you actually entitled to in terms of features based off the licensing. So if you're a state or a state integrated school here, you have access to Microsoft 365 A3. And then what it will do is say, these are the things you've got turned on. And for each thing you've got turned on, your score goes up. For the features that you don't have turned on around security, your score will have a gap, hence what we see on the screen here. So some of these things and it will provide you a list of saying, these are the key things you should turn on next to harden your environment. And so under identity, pretty much the first one is always multi-factor authentication. But it will actually give you an indicator saying how easy is it to kind of turn on or off and implement, but also what's the impact on your users. So it's quite transparent. It will say multi-factor authentication has a medium to high impact on your users. And then it will have other things in there as well that you're recommended to do. The key part, of course, is that it does give you a comparison with other organisations in your sector. So this is comparing against other education institutes. So you're able to quickly say, are we on trend or are we behind others that are working in the education sector? Remember, this will go up into higher education as well. So just be careful of that when you're comparing yourself with others. I know some schools are starting to do kind of regular syncs on this to check their security profile, but it also gives really strong leverage when coming to leadership teams and saying, we need to have multi-factor authentication turned on for our dynamic group around pastoral care, finance and senior leadership to protect those individuals, but also to protect the reputation of our organisation if we had a data leak in this place here. So if you want best practice, do check out Secure Score.
Okay. And it doesn't force you to do anything. It says, here's some things that you should consider. So I really enjoy that. So onto the good stuff, savings. So we've done this whole process. I said to the board initially, I think we're going to be saving some money and some costs and headaches of X amount. So of course at the end of it, I had to prove.
Justify, yeah.
I'd say, see, I do know what I'm talking about. So we saved about 250,000 per annum in OPEX.
Wow.
just by moving to the cloud, without doing anything other than turning off physical servers and putting everything up into the cloud. So that was server support, backups, antivirus and licensing. All those costs disappeared because we didn't have to put them on servers, maintain servers, pay somebody to put an agent on and manage. 250k OPEX straight back in that we could just invest on other things.
Nice.
The other key thing was about 100 for us anyway, because we had so many physical servers, about 100k every 3 years for CapEx.
Right.
Didn't need to spend that. I can now spend that money on something else that's going to add some value. The other, I guess, touchy-feely savings was Argentina sport tickets. We're getting about 10 to 15 a week, and they were a nightmare to do. Maybe one a month now, maybe, because we took away all that pain of printing and files. New Zealand sport tickets were 200 a week. We're down to about 40 or 50.
Fantastic. Across all of the campuses across New Zealand.
Across New Zealand. Yeah. So there's some savings there because clearly staff and students are able to do things uninterrupted.
Nice.
It's not all sunshine and rainbows. So we have had a few pain points. So at the beginning of this year, we rolled out about 850 brand new Lenovo 11E devices around the country. Plus, we called back some that we got last year, so we had about 400 in Auckland that we re-imaged, joined to Azure. We did find that when we were working on 40 plus devices simultaneously, we'd get to a point in the afternoon, normally around about 2 p.m. New Zealand time, where everything would stop.
Right.
We couldn't join Azure AD, software wasn't coming down. We'd sit there, we'll go away, have a coffee, we'd come back, some things may have trickled in, but then about 5 p.m. everything goes back into life.
Right.
Don't know why, it's just one of those things. We suspect there's possibly some throttling because of all the simultaneous calls.
Right.
That did cause us a little bit of pain.
Right.
And I guess the important thing to note here as well, we are on Network for Learning now. So we moved to Network for Learning about 18 months ago. Most of our sites have a 500 meg connection, so we know it wasn't the physical capacity of the line.
So that's a good call out because a lot of those listening will be either supporting or in state integrated schools who are on Network for Learning, and the question is, bandwidth, right? Is it sufficient to drive a cloud first deployment methodology? You're saying apart from this one hiccup that you've had at the beginning with a very large scale deployment, it is.
And that's it. And being in New Zealand, of course, we feed off the Australia data centres. Argentina are part of our tenant. Argentina have 20 meg internet connections for 40 kids, 40 devices. They connect international bandwidth to Australia, no issues. What we can still push software up, it takes a little bit longer, but they still get the software, the policies.
Even on a 20 meg connection?
On a 20 meg connection from Argentina.
Nice.
The only other, I guess, little gripe that we've found is we can't prioritise software deployment. So we have all these packages that we want to go out and say, all these need to go there. We can't say, this is mission critical number one, this one first, and then anything else. That would be the only thing. I know there's a user voice ticket for that one. I'm sure it'll come.
And look, these are good things to call out. I mean, I haven't had any input into what Aaron's presented here. He's presenting his story. Contact him afterwards if you want to have an offline conversation. But I think it's important that you go, hey, these things are really good. We did have a couple of niggles. We'd still like to see this feature coming in around prioritized app deployment, but you're giving it pretty straight.
Yeah, and you and I have had conversations, Sam, and I'll tell you the same thing.
Yeah, you have, many times.
Many times.
Yeah. I want to look back to just the comment around particularly OPEX savings around server management, licensing, antivirus. Has had a question come through from the team at Stack around, do you feel that the Office 365 retention policies are an adequate backup strategy for the documents and so forth you've got in the cloud?
Yeah, so it's not something we've had to ever challenge or work with. We've got some students now and staff with a couple of years worth of documents up there. Never been an issue. Students, we do encourage to put their assignments into our learning management system, which is Canvas, at the moment, because that's kind of where it belongs. It's a work in progress. We've never had any retention issues. It is something we'll probably look at globally around how long should we be keeping some of the stuff for. But today, it's never been a problem, never been an issue.
And that globally, I think, is important because what you've done in New Zealand is potentially going to be the model for the rest of your schools globally. Yeah,
and it's been interesting. So I've worked with my European counterpart early last year, and we moved his 12 campuses to the cloud. I sat in New Zealand, he gave me admin credentials to his tenant, I helped him set up basically what we've got here, and he just went with it and deployed it. and Tasmania are now apparently going to start trialling it for Australia as well. So it is something we can pick up, cookie cut around.
Yep. Excellent. I know you've only got 2 or 3 more slides to go. We're running pretty much right on time, so if you do have questions, shortly we'll take those, but we'll let you finish.
So I'm second to last slide, I promise. So just some key takeaways, I guess, and these are the things that always come up. It just works. Out of the box, essentially, it just works. We don't have problems with it. It takes away a lot of pain. It doesn't replace the IT team. So I know a lot of the globally they were worrying about, oh, if we don't have servers and blinking lights and things, what are we going to do as IT professionals? It doesn't get rid of IT. It refocuses them on what can we do to add value to the students and to the staff. And that's certainly what we're finding out. We've got time to go off and explore the latest things in Teams or OneNote.
Not keeping the lights on.
Frees up CapEx and OpEx, obviously, which for state and state integrated, no, that's got to be a good thing. For us, no, we've been able to reinvest it in some other technologies. Don't mention it just works.
Thank you.
I'm just blown away about how it just works. No issues, it just does. We've got devices sitting in Auckland, we pull them out of a box, we log on, software just starts appearing. People walk past and are just amazed that things are just happening without us touching it, and it's ready to go. And beginning of the year, we actually turned off all of our servers nationwide, plus Argentina. It just worked. Other than that initial big deployment, we can open up a device, it takes half an hour, ship it out, it's done. Logged onto Azure, got all the right permissions, configurations, apps, ship it off.
Which is so important for your environment specifically, because you have your IT team here in Auckland. Correct. You've got campuses across New Zealand, Argentina, and elsewhere that you're responsible for, right?
Yep.
But the same concept is true if you're an IT manager in a school as well. You could actually just hand a new staff member a device out of the box. If they want to configure it at home, they just join it to their home wireless network, put in their school credentials, wait, and everything just to come back.
Then I come back and it's done. Yeah, I'm always just amazed about how simple it is, and it takes so much pressure away from us. We've got time to, like I say, add value.
Yeah, totally.
And that's me.
That's a great story, Aaron.
Sort of nutshell.
Yeah. I appreciate we've run pretty much to time. Aaron and I have time to hang around. If you have questions that you would like, do encourage you to take advantage of Aaron's presence here. He's been there, done that from 2 years ago, having had a vision and an idea to fully implementing it across the nation and in Argentina as well. So feel free to jump on the call now, unmute yourself and ask a question if you want to of Aaron or myself. Chuck it in the chat box if you want to, and we'll sit here and wait to see if anyone's got questions.
So in our meetings we have a 9-second rule.
Okay, so a couple coming in through the chat window here. So 2 for you. One, the Ministry of Education mandates a 7-year retention. What do you use to comply with that? And then secondly, have you had any security issues from a separate question as well that have come in too?
Yep, so I guess the retention stuff is quite interesting because, and I've only started digging into this with Ministry, the retention seems to apply more to student records as opposed to a student assignment, except where that's been marked as part of NCEA. All that stuff is in the student management system. That's been there for wherever. So we recently moved from Kmart to Music Edge. We copied all that stuff across, so we comply with retention. It is something that I need to dig into a little bit more, just make sure we are still ticking all the boxes. But my understanding is it's the school record stuff and anything around academic achievement that needs to be retained as opposed to, like I say, photos from the weekend.
Cool. What about security issues? Have you had any security challenges since you've moved to this model?
No. For our senior staff, so the leadership team, IT, finance, went with multi-factor authentication pretty much off the bat, which secured a lot of things. And then there's just standard security models in place anyway about what people can and can't access. So if somebody did get compromised, they're not going to be able to get into anything overly exciting anyway, because we do have various partitions and separate logins in place.
Cool. Using Windows Defender for malware and virus protection on the devices or something else?
We have that enabled. We've also got ESEP. We're tied into a global contract, which I'm sort of saying, hey, I don't want to use this anymore. It's an extra bit of software to maintain and deploy. Windows Defender is all I've got on my personal device here. and it just works.
Cool.
No problem. And we're actually looking at the A5 license,
yeah.
so we can get some more ATP functionality.
Totally.
Which again, as a independent school, we have to pay for, but of course, I think it's a worthwhile investment.
Yeah, cool.
And then it's a single pane of glass again.
Nice. A question here coming in: do you populate your users from the student management system?
That's a really good question. No, we don't. We could using School Data Sync.
Yeah.
Our school population is pretty static.
Right.
So we're an independent school. We don't have students enrolling from other schools or other areas. It's static. So we're just taking pre-enrollments now for year 3 for next year. I'll get those. I'll throw them into a spreadsheet, import them using PowerShell. That's then done basically until they leave at year 13.
Yeah.
We don't have big numbers like state schools coming and going.
Yeah, the transition stuff.
Yeah.
I guess he's touched on something there as well called School Data Sync, or sds.microsoft.com, a free tool that is designed to integrate with your student management system and automatically populate your groups into Office 365 and Azure Active Directory. You can do that either through API calls, or you can do it through a CSV sort of upload, and Microsoft Flow supports the automation of the CSV upload as well. So a number of the student management systems in New Zealand have CSV support. We're working with a couple who are interested in going to full API support as well. So if you're interested, whether your existing student management system or your prospective one has that functionality, feel free to jump out to me later on that one.
Yeah, and I guess a bit sad that I can't use that. I'd love to use it, because again, laziest guy in the room. If I just have to enter some information once and it does everything else, great.
Yeah, cool. Good questions, thank you. Any others that you want to unmute for and ask us on the call, or throw in the chat window? One here: what's your licensing costs?
So similar to state schools, we pay for faculty licensing. Students are free.
Yep. And so it's basically standard academic
it's standard academic pricing. I've actually just done my budget. I can't remember the cost per annum off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I think it's like $90. I honestly can't remember for the A3.
But you can jump on and just do a web search for M365 A3 licensing, and you'll find the academic licensing there. Again, if you're a state or a state integrated school, and I know we've got the ministry team on the call now, thank you again for procuring that on behalf of those state and state integrated schools. So everything that's been demonstrated today outside of the printing side of things is covered and available at no cost to the direct school.
Yep. Okay. That includes Network for Learning, doesn't it, Sam?
Network for Learning, I believe schools are not paying.
Yep.
Yeah, good question around licensing though. So academic licensing that's out there, you believe in it enough to pay for it as an independent school, and you're getting savings out of what you've done.
Yep.
Great. A shy audience that doesn't want to ask
questions. So Sam, you've got my contact information.
I do, yes.
If anybody wants to contact me directly, feel free to just reach out to Sam. He can flick across my mobile or email address to have some offline conversations.
Yeah. And Chris, you've asked around, is licensing FTE based or headcount? So it's transitioned to what's called a knowledge worker now. So the definition's online, you can dig into that. But a knowledge worker, effectively, if you're a user that is going to be using a computer, it's kind of the easiest way I describe knowledge workers, you're going to need to be licensed in that space. So that will be your teaching staff, your administrative staff. You might have some staff like groundskeepers or cafe workers that are not ever touching a device. They don't need to be licensed. There is, of course, the free A1 license, which you can get for free Office 365 online only, no offline apps. None of the EMS side of things around Intune management applies under A1 as well. But happy to have a chat with you around licensing offline, perhaps, rather than here. And another question's come in, perhaps similar to the other one around backups. Are you doing any form of archiving currently?
So we are currently in a global agreement with Barracuda. So that does our email archiving, some security with their Sentinel product, which again, globally, I'm saying I don't really want that. Microsoft product does it out of the box. It's included in the purchase price. Why would I pay for extra? As far as documents and things go, all our OneDrives are backed up with Barracuda as well. I'm in two minds whether we actually need that. OneDrive does have some really good built-in tools. One of the reasons we went to it was, again, some of the legacy thoughts around cloud was, but what about CryptoLocker? What happens if your OneDrive gets CryptoLocked? You need a backup so you can come back from that. I haven't done too much into it, but I believe OneDrive's now got some functionality where you can just
one touch restore, choose your point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's the thing is one of the, I mean, 365 is a huge product, and most organisations, both inside of education and outside, are just scratching the surface in terms of the functionality they're actually using in it. But retention policies is a really powerful thing that you can build into your configuration. And under M365A3, you've got virtually unlimited storage for retention of content. Okay, so that's worthwhile diving into if this is an important consideration for your educational institute. Another question's come in, great that's still coming in. If you're open to sharing, what student management system do you use?
So we're now using Muzak Edge. Again, it's 100% cloud-based. Since 2017, I've said I don't want to know a product unless it's cloud-based. Cool. We were on Kmart, hosted out of their data center. Argentina particularly struggled. It wasn't cloud-based. I know they're moving to a cloud-based model at some point. I just didn't want to wait, so we went with the Edge. It's web browser app. It just works for us.
Cool. Yeah. Again, lots of thanks for your time coming in here. Some great takeaways. So people are appreciating what you've shared, Aaron, as I am as well. So it might be starting to look like the end of the questions. We will wait a minute, perhaps more. So if you've got a question, either unmute and ask it, a shy audience, or throw it into the chat window now. But most people are saying thanks for a great presentation, Aaron.
Great.
Certainly from my perspective, have been very grateful for your transparency around sharing this, both what's worked. We have had some hiccups. I think that's a very natural story to have both sides of that there, but clearly some very strong benefits for your wider organisation having made this move.
Appreciate everybody taking the time to join us today.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to stop the recording now, and we will be dropping off pretty shortly. So record.